The three main themes discussed throughout the poem are anger, deception, and communication. We can see the two different variants of anger in the first stanza in the poem itself. We saw how a small term anger or a short term anger, which was resolved instantly, was normal and did not had any lasting impact on both the people. How when the speaker was angry at his friend and then they talked it out and resolved and everything was okay and good between them. That is one instance. In the second instance, when he didn't forgive, when he didn't talk it out, when he didn't communicate with the friend, and thus his anger grew and became ripe into a wrath when he himself became evil. So this shows us that anger as a feeling is okay. That it is very normal to be angry. We are all human, and every one of us feels angry at something or the other. But if it goes beyond control, it is not. And how we deal with our anger is extremely important. The next theme is deception. Deception is basically, in very simpler words, it is basically cheating. We are not being honest. We show ourselves in a different way. Just like how the speaker showed himself smiling and with deceitful wiles in front of the enemy, whereas he was feeling angry inside. That is a clear example of deception. So when the speaker bottles things up and doesn't share his feelings with the enemy, he doesn't share it with the enemy that I'm angry at you. That is actually deception. And again, when the enemy sneaks into the garden, so that is also cheating. You know that the fruit is the speaker's. It is being said in the poem that the enemy understands that the apple is the property of the speaker, but still he sneaks into the garden to steal it. So here the use of stole is an interesting choice. So the stole word is actually used here to mean that the enemy sneaked in under the cover of darkness. It is also reminds the reader that it is an act of theft. So it is both an act of deception as well as stealing also. So there are instances in our life when we are also being deceptive. There are many instances when we being deceptive in front of parents, where we don't come out with in true honesty and tells everything to them, when we can be deceptive in front of friends, in front of our teachers. But the worst case is when we are deceptive in front of ourselves. Sometimes we just don't accept ourselves that, we made a mistake, or we are not being completely honest, or we are not being completely active. Sometimes we could be lazy and not do things, and then we give excuses to ourselves, saying that it is okay, I did this because maybe this happened. We woke up late, but instead of admitting it to ourselves, we come up with the excuse that I was feeling tired, that is why. Maybe you were feeling tired, but sometimes we deceive ourselves. We make deceptions to ourselves, lying to ourselves basically. So when deception takes over our normal feelings, it can turn very bad. We wouldn't know what is the truth anymore, because the enemy couldn't understand how the speaker was putting on a mask of friendship. We will not be able to understand what is truth anymore. We won't be able to understand our parents, our teachers, our friends, anyone anymore, not even ourselves. And if deception reaches that level, it is going to be very problematic. And the next theme discussed is extremely an important theme, which is communication. We saw how the entire problem in the poem happened because of lack of communication. And we also saw how communication could have helped. So this is the direct moral lesson that we get from the poem. So you can see this exactly in the line, I told my wrath, I told it not. So in the first instance, when he was angry and when he told his wrath went away. And when he told it not, it did not go away. So when he shared his anger, the problem was resolved, the communication happened, the two people could speak, all the problem got resolved. When he did not speak, when he did not communicate, the problem grew and nobody knew what the problem was anymore. It grew beyond their control. That is what lack of communication can cause. There are many instances in our life where we also can see how lack of communication can be a problem. Not just in classroom when your teacher asks you something to be shared and you do not share it, and that can cause to increased misunderstandings or problems. But many instances in our life when we don't share properly or when we don't say what we want to at the right time, it can be very cause dangerous. The use of opposites show how simple it would be to talk about an issue, but equally how easy it is to say nothing and let resentment grow. So it is actually very easy to talk your issue out, to communicate and resolve, but when you don't communicate, it can grow into poison, basically. So the important messages that we can see in the poem are: 1. Do not suppress negative emotions. If we have any small, even a very small negative emotion like anger or worry or fear or disinterest, anything small, if we let it grow inside our hearts, we can see how, like the speaker in the poem grew his anger, our negative emotions will also become big over time and can then become a much bigger cause of worry. So it is always better to resolve it as soon as possible when it is small, and it is easier to help get it out of our system so that we can be relaxed. Otherwise, our emotions might take control of us rather than we being in control of our emotions. So this is in case, there are very in real life examples of this suppression of negative emotions gone very bad. So there are, if we can see in news, we see many heinous crimes committed by people of, maybe it could be mass murdering, or we can see like in countries like America somewhere where the guns are licensed, people shooting many people in a club or somewhere, they're going into a church and killing many people together. All these acts of violence, like rampant shooting incidents, which we can see many examples in newspapers if you actually read it, is of people who could not control their rage, could not control their anger, because their anger had, this was not a very momentary anger. This is not something that had happened to them just because somebody pushed them or just because somebody made them, triggered them. This was a small anger which built over time inside them. So similarly, if we also grow our negative emotions inside us instead of resolving them, they can cause equal harm to us and to people that we love around us. Another thing is, main message is forgiveness. It is always best to forgive others, if not for their sake, but for the peace of our mind. Even if we're not doing it, mostly we are not doing it for their benefit. If you don't forgive somebody, and if we keep remembering that incident, even if it is the other person's mistake, if we keep on remembering that inside our hearts, we won't be at peaceful. We won't feel peaceful. Our sleep we'll always have that small grudge, small bad feeling inside us. So it is always best to forgive and forget. And lastly, but the most important point is to be truthful. Be truthful to yourself first, then above everyone else, and to be honest to people. Be able to stand up to yourself. Be honest. Do not shy away from owning up to what you have done or what you have talked. You are you. There is nobody to question your authenticity. So it is always best to be honest. And we already in the poem we saw how a small miscommunication between two people had caused such damage to each of them. So effective communication and truthful communication and honesty is always the best policy to follow. Now, to sum up our lesson in very short terms, we can look at the mind map. So in the poem, in very small terms, we can see that the poet William Blake, if we are imagining that the poet himself is the persona in the poem, then first he was angry with his friend and then has told him about it and his anger ended. But next he was angry with his enemy but did not tell, and that anger grew. And the anger grew and he gave more life to his anger with his fears and tears. They were the water, and the sunshine was the smile and the fake friendship. So the anger grew day and night, and it grew like a tree and bore an apple. So his anger bare fruit, and that was an apple, poisonous apple. His enemy saw and it was shining. He believed it to be a shiny fruit instead of the poison it was. And he came secretly into the poet's garden and ate the apple. and died because it was poisoned. So the next morning, when the poet saw this, his anger changed into gladness because his enemy was dead under the tree. That is, in short, the summary of the poem, and the meaning of the poem has been well explained to you in this video. If you have any further doubts, please reach out to me. I hope you understood this well. Thank you.